60-ton Abrams tanks sit silently on a concrete pier. Their engines are cold, their turrets face forward, and thousands of miles of open ocean stretch before them. Somewhere beyond that horizon, a war may already be forming. American allies could be waiting for support while enemy forces build defenses and prepare for battle. Yet every one of these tanks shares the same problem. None of them can swim. None of them can fly. Behind the tanks stand hundreds of Bradley fighting vehicles, fuel trucks, artillery systems, engineering equipment, and supplies for thousands of soldiers. Together they represent one of the most powerful armored forces on Earth. But at this moment, they are completely useless. Because military power does not begin when a weapon is built. It begins when that weapon reaches the battlefield. The United States faces a challenge unlike any other military power in history. Nearly every possible battlefield lies across an ocean. Europe sits beyond the Atlantic. Asia lies across the Pacific. The Middle East requires crossing thousands of miles of water. Before any war can be fought, an army must first solve the problem of distance. A tank parked safely in Texas is not power. An armored brigade sitting in Georgia is not power. Real power exists only when those forces arrive exactly where they are needed. The strongest army in the world becomes helpless if it cannot reach the fight. Many people assume military cargo simply flies to war. But heavy armor does not work that way. A strategic airlifter can carry only a limited amount of equipment. Moving an entire armored brigade by air would require thousands of flights, billions of dollars, and weeks of continuous operations. Steel is simply too heavy to fly efficiently. More than 90% of military equipment moves by sea because the ocean is not merely the cheapest road. It is the only road wide enough to carry an army. Somewhere beyond the horizon sails a ship that most Americans have never heard of. It is nearly 1,000 feet long. It carries dozens of tanks, hundreds of vehicles, and enough supplies to support thousands of soldiers. It can unload itself without a port and deliver an entire army onto a damaged coastline. These ships quietly cross the world's oceans while most people never notice them. Yet without them, America's military power would remain parked at home. The United States learned this lesson during one of the most important military crises of the modern era. In 1990, Iraqi forces invaded Kuwait, creating a dangerous situation in the Middle East. American troops could fly into the region quickly, but heavy armor could not. Tanks, armored vehicles, fuel supplies, ammunition, and engineering equipment had to travel thousands of miles by sea. At that time, many cargo ships available to the military moved slowly, often traveling at only 14 to 18 knots. Every additional day spent crossing the ocean gave the enemy more time to strengthen defenses and prepare for war. Military planners quickly realized that speed itself had become a weapon. A powerful army arriving too late could lose before the first battle even began. Soldiers without tanks cannot conduct armored warfare. Tanks without fuel cannot move. Artillery without ammunition cannot fight. Every military operation depends on logistics. The public often sees fighter jets, missiles, and tanks, but rarely notices the transportation systems that make those weapons useful. After the Gulf War, engineers and military planners began asking difficult questions. Could a ship carry an entire armored brigade by itself? Could it move faster than traditional cargo vessels? Could it unload equipment even if the port had been destroyed? The answers would shape the future of American military logistics. The challenge seemed almost impossible. The ship needed enough space to carry dozens of tanks and hundreds of support vehicles. Its decks had to withstand thousands of tons of weight while crossing rough oceans. It needed the speed of a naval vessel while maintaining the cargo capacity of a freighter. Most importantly, it had to operate without depending on foreign ports or damaged harbors. These requirements eventually produced one of the most important transport ships ever built. Instead of simply carrying cargo, these vessels became floating military bases capable of transporting an entire army. Their purpose was not just transportation. Their mission was to eliminate distance itself. Every hour saved at sea could change the outcome of a conflict. Every day gained could provide commanders with a critical advantage before the enemy had time to react. Building these ships required engineers to solve problems that ordinary cargo vessels never face. An M1 Abrams tank weighs more than 60 tons. Bradley fighting vehicles add even more weight. Fuel trucks, engineering equipment, ammunition carriers, and armored recovery vehicles create enormous pressure on every deck inside the ship. Ordinary cargo floors would bend or fail under such loads. Military engineers needed to create a floating structure capable of supporting an entire armored army. The solution was essentially a giant parking garage at sea. Multiple cargo decks were built inside the vessel, connected by internal ramps and heavy elevators. Tanks could drive directly from one level to another without requiring cranes. Thousands of tie-down points secured vehicles to the decks during rough weather. Even while crossing large storms, the cargo would remain safely locked in place. The amount of cargo space inside these ships is extraordinary. Nearly 400,000 square feet of deck area allows an entire brigade to travel together. Dozens of Abrams tanks, hundreds of armored vehicles, fuel supplies, maintenance equipment, and thousands of tons of cargo can fit inside a single hull. More than half of the ship's total displacement exists solely to carry military equipment. Ventilation systems also became essential. Hundreds of diesel engines operating inside enclosed cargo spaces can quickly create dangerous conditions. Massive fans remove exhaust gases while maintaining safe air quality for crews and vehicle operators. Fire suppression systems protect the cargo areas in case fuel or equipment ignites. Every system exists for one purpose: keeping the cargo operational. Even the dimensions of the ship reflect military strategy. The beam was carefully designed to fit through the Panama Canal, allowing rapid movement between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. This decision prevents ships from sailing around South America, saving valuable time during emergencies. Every foot of the vessel serves a purpose. Every measurement reflects military planning. These ships are not simply large cargo carriers. They are carefully engineered machines designed to move an army across an ocean. Their decks carry tanks, their engines fight time, and their entire existence solves one question that has shaped every American war for decades. How do you move thousands of soldiers and their equipment to a battlefield thousands of miles away before the enemy is ready? The ability to carry thousands of tons of equipment means nothing if the ship cannot unload when it arrives. Commercial cargo vessels depend on modern ports, powerful cranes, and deep-water docks. War zones rarely provide any of those things. Enemy forces understand that ports are strategic targets. They destroy fuel facilities, damage piers, mine harbors, and cripple transportation networks before an invasion force can arrive. A ship carrying an armored brigade may reach the coastline only to discover that the entire harbor has been destroyed. At that moment, the cargo becomes useless unless the ship can unload itself. This problem forced military engineers to completely rethink the purpose of a transport vessel. Instead of designing a ship that needed a port, they designed a ship that could become a port. Massive stern ramps allow tanks and trucks to drive directly from the cargo decks onto floating causeways, barges, or damaged docks. Side ramps provide additional unloading points, allowing multiple streams of vehicles to leave the vessel simultaneously. Instead of waiting for cranes to lift each vehicle individually, entire columns of armored equipment can drive directly onto land. For equipment that cannot move under its own power, the ships carry heavy cargo cranes capable of lifting containers, engineering equipment, ammunition, and supplies. Together, these systems create what military planners call a self-sustaining port. The ship brings its own unloading equipment, its own cargo systems, and its own operational capability. It does not require a friendly nation, a functioning harbor, or expensive infrastructure. This ability changes military strategy. Commanders can select coastlines that enemies consider unusable. Forces can arrive where no port exists. Supplies can reach areas devastated by war or natural disasters. The ocean itself becomes an extension of the logistics network. Instead of depending on local infrastructure, the military carries the infrastructure with it. The ship no longer functions as a simple transport vessel. It becomes a mobile supply base capable of delivering combat power anywhere in the world. Cargo capacity and unloading systems solve two major problems, but time remains the most important factor in warfare. A powerful army that arrives too late may lose the conflict before the first battle even begins. Traditional cargo ships move slowly because commercial companies value fuel efficiency over speed. Military operations follow a different calculation. Every day saved during deployment reduces the time available for an enemy to prepare defenses, position forces, or reinforce critical locations. For this reason, these transport ships were designed to travel much faster than ordinary cargo vessels. Speeds approaching 24 knots may not seem impressive compared to destroyers or aircraft carriers, but for ships carrying tens of thousands of tons of cargo, such performance is remarkable. Those additional knots can reduce ocean crossings by several days, allowing equipment to reach combat zones far more quickly. Some ships rely on large diesel engines that provide excellent efficiency and reliability during long voyages. Others use gas turbines similar to those found in naval warships. Both approaches produce enormous amounts of power while allowing the vessels to maintain high speeds across long distances. Advanced propeller systems improve maneuverability and help the ships operate safely in crowded ports or narrow channels. Range is equally important. These vessels can travel thousands of miles without refueling, crossing entire oceans while carrying the equipment of an armored brigade. They connect the American homeland to distant battlefields, shrinking the world through speed and engineering. Every mile traveled reduces the advantage held by an enemy. Every hour gained gives commanders more options. Military planners eventually realized that the fastest way to deploy an army was not always to move it from the United States. Instead, equipment could be stored aboard ships already positioned around the world. When a crisis occurs, soldiers fly to the region and meet their equipment upon arrival. The ship becomes a floating warehouse of military power, waiting quietly until it is needed. Today, these ships represent something much larger than transportation. They represent the ability of the United States to project military power across the globe. Some vessels remain stationed near strategic regions, carrying the equipment of entire brigades while waiting for orders. Others remain in reserve, maintained by small crews that can activate the ships within days. During major conflicts, they become the bridge between America and the battlefield. Their value has already been proven. During military operations in the Middle East, these ships delivered tanks, vehicles, fuel, and supplies that allowed American forces to deploy rapidly. More recently, similar capabilities have been used to support humanitarian missions, delivering aid to coastlines where ports have been damaged or destroyed. Their ability to create logistics infrastructure where none exists makes them valuable during both war and disaster relief operations. However, these giant ships face new challenges. Long-range missiles, advanced surveillance systems, and modern anti-ship weapons have changed naval warfare. Large transport vessels can become attractive targets. Maintaining aging ships is expensive, and many are gradually moving into reserve fleets as newer technologies are developed. Yet the problem they were built to solve remains exactly the same. Return to the beginning. Imagine those Abrams tanks sitting quietly on a concrete pier, facing thousands of miles of open ocean. They cannot swim. They cannot fly. They cannot reach the battlefield alone. The question was never how powerful the tank is. The real question was whether the tank could arrive where it was needed. These ships provide that answer. They transform distance into movement, oceans into highways, and cargo into combat power. Military strength is not measured by the number of weapons a nation owns. It is measured by its ability to place those weapons in the right place at the right time. A tank sitting at home is only potential. A tank rolling down a ramp onto a distant shoreline is power. Somewhere beyond the horizon, these giant ships continue to sail quietly, carrying entire armies within their steel hulls, ensuring that when the moment comes,